Hey guys, I just wanted to take a few minutes here to talk about something that I personally am pretty passionate about, and that's the Milwaukee Brewers. In specific, I'd like to talk about the farm system that is by far the worst in baseball. However, I look at it a little bit differently, and I actually believe that the Brewers farm system is underrated. I'm sure if you're a Brewers fan, or even just a baseball fan who follows other teams other than your own, you probably disagree with me and say, no, they really are the worst in baseball, and it's not up for argument. I'm here to just explain my side of that and tell you why I believe that it is underrated. First, I'd like to talk about the former top prospects of the Milwaukee Brewers and just why the current top 30 is as bad as it is. First off, let's talk about Brandon Woodruff. In 2019, Woodruff just kind of splashed on the scene out of nowhere, becoming an all-star as a starter with an 11-3 record and a 3.62 ERA. Unfortunately, halfway through the season, he did get injured and missed about 2 months of his season, and unfortunately could not get back to his form as a starter. Next up, we have Corbin Burnes, who in 2018 made his much-anticipated debut, but mostly out of the bullpen. He had a 7-0 record with a 2.61 ERA and 38 innings pitched. From those direct numbers, you probably think, wow, that's pretty dominant. I wonder what he did in 2019. Well, if you've heard the name Corbin Burnes, you probably know it's not for the best reasons. In 2019, Corbin Burnes had a 1-5 record and an 8.82 ERA in 49 innings. That's just not good. Whether you're a starter or a reliever, an 8.82 ERA is just unheard of at this point, especially when you're pitching 50 innings. I do believe that in 2020, if we get a season in 2020, he will return to form and might even push his way back into the rotation. If not, look for 2021 for that to happen. Next up is Keston Hiura. I'm sure you've heard of him. If you haven't, well, I'm sure you're going to. Keston Hiura was drafted in the 2017 draft in the first round by the Brewers and was said to be the best pure hitter in that draft class. After watching some highlights during the draft, I saw his swing and immediately knew he was going to fly through the minor leagues, which is exactly what he did. To begin the 2019 season, the Brewers had quite a few infielders, but one infielder was pretty cold straight out the gate and never started to heat up. That's Travis Shaw. Unfortunately for Travis Shaw, he did get sent down, but it allowed Keston Hiura to get the call to the major leagues. In his first taste of action, he had about a 300 average and maybe 4 home runs if I remember correctly. Unfortunately, the Brewers made the stupid decision of calling Travis Shaw back up to the majors and sending Keston Hiura down back to AAA. After another few weeks of Travis Shaw showing that he just forgot how to hit, they decided, you know what, we're going to call Keston Hiura back up. And that's what they did, and he was never sent back down. By the end of the 2019 season, Keston Hiura had a 3.03 average and 19 home runs, and that was only in 84 games, if you can believe that. However, if you combine his minor league and major league numbers, he almost had 40 home runs throughout the entire 2019 season. One last player that I'd like to just kind of mention is Luis Urias, who no longer is a prospect and never was a prospect for the Brewers. However, he has very little major league experience after being traded over from the Padres to the Brewers. I see him becoming a much better hitter than he was in San Diego. In 2019, in the minor leagues, Luis Urias had 19 home runs and a 3.15 average. You hear those numbers and you probably think, wow, he probably came up to the majors and kind of just did the same thing. Hit. Well, you'd be wrong. When Urias arrived to the major leagues last season, he only had 4 home runs and a 2.23 average in 71 games. Not exactly living up to the hype now, is he? Now for the part of the video that I was really looking forward to, and that's looking at the current 2020 top 30 Milwaukee Brewers prospects. I won't waste your time and talk about every single prospect, but there are still a few that I really want to look at, especially the younger ones and the top 10. To start off, we'll talk about the number 1 prospect for the Milwaukee Brewers, who, in my opinion, is actually overrated. I know what you're thinking, I'm trying to talk about underrated players, but I don't think Bryce Terang deserves the number 1 spot for the Milwaukee Brewers' top 30 prospects. When he was drafted in the first round of the 2018 draft, he was really touted for his ability to get on base as well as his fielding and his speed. Well, 2 of those 3 have lived up to the hype, as in 2 seasons he has 44 stolen bases and has shown a very slick glove at shortstop and second base. Unfortunately, the .263 average and 4 home runs between the 2 years is not quite good enough to what I would say is a number 1 prospect. To move on to the number 2 prospect, who I believe should actually be the number 1 prospect for the Brewers, is left-handed pitcher Ethan Small, who was drafted in the first round of the 2019 draft. At 23 years old, it's expected that he will fly through the minor leagues fairly fast. Judging by his rookie season last year, I would agree with that. In 21 innings pitched, he had 36 strikeouts and only 4 walks, with a 0.86 ERA. Ethan Small has some very fast pitches, and he knows how to use that velocity to fool his opponents, and does it very well, as seen by his 36 strikeouts. His control is fairly good right now, but I think it could get a little bit better with some age. The number 3 prospect for the Brewers is Mario Feliciano, a catcher who was drafted as a competitive balance round pick in the 2016 draft. His first few seasons in the minor leagues didn't look all that promising. However, in 2019, he had a definite breakout year at the age of 21, with 19 home runs and a .270 average. If you're asking me for a catcher, I'll take that any day, whether that's minors or majors. I'm going to skip the number 4 pick and the number 5 just because they're really nothing to write home about. But I will look at the number 6 Milwaukee Brewers prospect, and that's Antone Kelly, who was also a 2019 draft pick in the second round. Just like with Ethan Small, he shows a high ability to strike people out and keep guys off base. In 31.2 innings in 2019, he had 45 strikeouts and only 9 walks with a 2.84 ERA. It'll take a little bit longer for him to reach the majors, unlike Small, as he's only 20 years old. However, I do see a lot to like about Kelly, as his control is top tier, and his ability to fool hitters is just amazing. Go look up some tapes. It's pretty nice. Now to talk about a few prospects that I was definitely ready to talk about when this video started. The past couple of years, the Milwaukee Brewers have decided to look into the international prospect market a lot more than they used to. And I believe that there is the reason why the Brewers farm system is underrated. When you have guys that are 16, 17, 18 years old with no minor league baseball experience, you can't really grade them too well based on anything other than how they've played when they were little. A lot of these prospects have actually been judged based on their little league experience. The first prospect I'd like to talk about out of the international pool is the number 7 prospect for the Brewers, Eduardo Garcia, signed out of the Dominican Republic. His defense is really his calling card right now, as a lot of scouts see him as a potential gold glover at short. He also has solid contact with a little bit of pop, which most scouts also believe will improve to most likely 15 to 20 home runs on average. Next up is going to be the number 8 prospect for the Brewers, and that's Hedbert Perez, who, like Garcia, is known for his glove, only this time it's an outfielder. The speed that he has can definitely help his range a lot, and his arm is above average as well. With the bat, It's a little bit different from Garcia, as he can still hit for contact, but not a lot of power. He still has room for improvement as he is only 17 years old, just like Garcia. Next up is going to be the number 11 prospect for the Brewers, and that's Luis Medina, who is an outfielder out of Venezuela. Medina is mostly known for his power right now, which most say he could end up being one of the best power hitters in the majors. Unfortunately right now he pulls the ball a little bit too much, but at 17 years old they feel he has enough time to adjust to hit to all parts of the field, which can improve that power and even his contact. Next up is going to be the number 12 prospect, who is Carlos Rodriguez, another outfielder out of Venezuela, known for his speed and his contact. Unfortunately, he doesn't have too much experience under his belt, but in 104 games in the minors, he does have a .327 average, but he's not known for his power. Last up for the international signees is going to be Jefferson Cuaro, the number 17 prospect for the Brewers. He's a catcher out of Venezuela who is good at hard, consistent contact, a strong arm, and great behind the dish, knows how to block. At 17 years old, they see him as a top average type of hitter and gold glove caliber behind the dish. Last up, I'd just like to talk about a few of the, I guess you could say, a little bit overrated prospects, or just prospects that are getting up there in age, and you'll probably see them pretty soon. First is Drew Rasmussen, who's the number 9 prospect for the Brewers. He was a 6th rounder in the 2018 draft, but is also 24 years old. He had 74 innings with 96 strikeouts and 31 walks last season with a .315 ERA, and could even impact the Major League club this upcoming season. As with Rasmussen, the number 10 prospect Corey Ray could also impact the team in the upcoming season. As we all know, he had a rough beginning to his career. Wasn't showing contact, wasn't showing power. Really all he had was his glove. In 2018, he did blow up with power, had 27 home runs. Still a low average as it was hovering right around 240 throughout the season. However, in 2019, he lost his power, lost even more contact, and worst of all, even got hurt. So he didn't even crack 10 home runs and missed almost the entire minor league season. Up after him is someone who I actually didn't even know still counted as a prospect, and that's Devin Williams, who was in the bullpen in the 2019 season for almost the entire second half. After a pretty bad slump in 2018, in which his ERA nearly hit 6 in the minor leagues, in 2019, he did have a .221 ERA in the minors, which was good enough to get him called up, where he had an ERA below 4 in the major leagues. Some other guys that are probably going to be seen pretty soon here are Joe Gray, who was a second-round pick in 2018. That one might be a little bit far-fetched for soon, but he's not too far off. Zach Brown and Trey Supak, 2 starting pitchers in the minor league system right now, are also seen as potential upgrades to the current crop of pitchers. Zach Brown most likely will get some time in 2020 or 2021 if we don't get a season, and Supak most likely 2021 if not 2022. That pretty much wraps up everything I want to say. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Feel free to discuss in the comments if you disagree or agree, or just to say something. This is my first video ever, so don't be too harsh. Fouled off.